Okay, so I'm now sitting in one of the houses on our latest land development where we've just finished building 7 flats and 2 houses. And step 2 in our property freedom formula is funding. Now, you may be in a position at the moment where you really want to get into property, or you want to go and do your first development, but actually you're not quite sure how to go and raise money, and maybe you haven't got any cash, and maybe you're using that as a block as to a way of not moving forward. So funding is a really important element, and that's why it's step 2 in the property freedom formula. And the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, is you do not need your own money in order to become a property developer and in order to start doing land development deals, commercial conversions. The way that we do most of our property deals now are with using none of our own money. So we use joint venture partnerships. Now, what is a joint venture? Well, a joint venture is where we work with investors, and they will typically invest the money into the project, and we go and do all of the work. So they put in the money, we go do all of the work, and it then becomes what's called a no money down deal for us. Now, there is so much money in the world at the moment. There's trillions and trillions and trillions of pounds, and it's easier today to access money than it ever has been in previous years. And there's so many investors out there that want to get their money working for them, but they just don't know what to do. Now, let's not forget, interest rates are very low. So having money sitting in a bank account, you're actually losing money. It's a depreciating asset. Stocks and shares for many people are too risky. And I'm not a financial advisor, but some of our investors are seeing less than 1% return in their current ISAs. So when you can find a deal that works, where you can show an investor a great return on capital, then ultimately you can come together and join as a partnership. So how did we raise the money for this deal? First of all, we found a joint venture partner. They put in what's called the equity part of the deal, and we bought the land. Now, the land was £305,000 with legals, and we used the investor funds for that. And then we went out to a development funding company known as Funding Circle, and they borrowed us the money needed for the development itself. So all of the construction costs, the professional fees, we used Funding Circle for that. We then became the developer. We set up a special purpose vehicle with the investor, and then we give the investor a profit share when we sell the units. So the investor sees a great return on capital. We haven't had to use any of our own money in order to do the development, and we have created a win-win for all involved. So how do you go about raising money for your future developments? Well, it's not that difficult, and if I can go and raise money, then you can definitely raise cash. And in just the last 2 years, we have been able to raise over £3 million in joint venture finance, and most of the £7.1 million worth of property that we've added to the portfolio in the last 2 years has been done using none of our own money. And this, now take me back 3 years ago, I didn't know you could do this stuff. You don't know what you don't know. So how are you going to go and raise money to do developments where you don't need to use your own cash? Well, what's really important is to work on your branding and exactly who you are and the investment products that you offer out to your investors. Then it's really important to develop your 60-second elevator pitch. So when you go networking, you feel confident in what you do and how you can help. And then it's really important to be seen and to be heard. How do you do that? Well, you get yourself to networking events. You can go to property networking events, business networking events, charity events. Go and put yourself out there and surround yourself with people that want to get into property, or they want to get their money working for them a lot better. So as some KPIs to follow, some key performance indicators, get yourself to at least one networking event per week. So we're only talking one. When you're at that networking event, go and introduce yourself to 5 new people and book in a minimum of 2 coffees. So imagine this. You go and do this for the next 8 weeks. That's 16 coffees you are going to have with entrepreneurs, business owners, people in property, people that want to get their money working for them better. You go put yourself out there, you start having the coffees, and then you find out how you can create a win-win for you and also the investor. What's also important when raising money is that you are part of a high-level mentorship or mastermind program. It's really important that you have invested in you, which is your biggest asset, and you're getting the right education, because that ultimately adds a lot of credibility. And it only takes that first JV partner to ultimately change everything for you. Now, our first ever joint venture partner was a guy called Dave from Basildon, and he invested £5,000 on a loan agreement for one of our multi-let refurbs. But it was that initial joint venture partnership that enabled my mindset to change, and it was like, wow, if we can get Dave to invest, then surely we can get many more people to invest. And since then, we've gone on to raise over £3 million in joint venture finance, and you can definitely do this. There's a couple of ways in which you can structure your joint venture deals. Well, there's many ways actually, but the 2 that we typically use are the following. So option 1 is where an investor will loan you money. And we've got a product known as the Assets for Life Savings Accelerator. And the investor might loan you, let's just say £100,000 or £200,000. You then do a loan agreement, and then you will agree to give that investor a fixed rate return, let's just say 10% per annum. And you've got the loan agreement for say 1, 2, 3 or 5 years. So that's one way in which you can raise money. The second way is through giving the investor an equity stake in the business. Now, when you're doing this, you can only do this to high net worth and sophisticated investors, and you do have to look up the FCA rules and regulations 13/3 to make sure that you're doing everything through the FCA guidelines. But typically, some high net worth and sophisticated investors, they want a bigger piece of the pie. You know, they're not really happy with an 8 or 10% fixed rate return. So in this scenario, what we will do is we will set up a special purpose vehicle, a limited company with the investor. They would become, let's say, a 50% shareholder. We as the developer would be a 50% shareholder. They invest the money, we go do all the work, and then when we sell the development, we pay the investor their initial capital back, plus, in this case, it could be a 50% share of any profits. So they are the 2 typical joint venture structures that we use, and we find that it's very effective. Do we do more of one than the other? It's about the same. We've done a whole bunch of joint venture partnerships on a loan agreement. We've done a whole bunch on 50-50 splits in an SPV. It's all about the investor and what they require. Remember, when you're out meeting potential investors, it's not about you, it's about them. And it's making sure that you can work together. So it's really important that you do your due diligence. It's really important that you spend time with the investor, making sure your values and your core vision and values and purpose are all linked together. Because once you start working together, you could be working with that investor for 1 or 2 years. So it is important that you've got a good, strong foundation. Raising joint venture finance has changed everything for us at Assets for Life. and we now do a lot of stuff using none of our own money. If we can raise joint venture finance, then you can definitely raise it as well. So if money is an issue for you, if you've got no cash, if your cash is tied up in an existing portfolio, that is not an excuse not to go and do developments and start building your own multi-million pound property portfolio. You've just got to learn how, and this blog is going to show you exactly how to do that. So stay tuned for more. That is step 2 of the Property Freedom Formula funding, and we're going to be moving on to step 3 shortly. Thanks very much.